Hey, what's up, you guys? This is Spillin' Tea with Chris G, and tonight we're going over Love and Hip Hop Atlanta's uncensored, unfiltered reunion, and this is a crazy one. I'm gonna go ahead and go over my top five highlights, spill some tea at the end for you all, and my top question of the night. So let's go ahead and get it cracking. So before I get started and jump into my highlight, I just want to tell you guys that this reunion bounced around a lot because they had to have everyone separated. From the start, they were doing metal detector ones and searching people bags, and they had dogs and security, and I don't know. But I'm going to go ahead and jump into my first highlight, and this is KK, Dime, Carly, and Mimi against Jocelyn. Already off the bat, they were basically talking about, what they experienced with Jocelyn from this past season. Mimi had the Jocelyn situation when Jocelyn was, they made up at first, but then Jocelyn was telling her about this baby that Stevie had by Promise Be May. Carly Red, she was blackmailed by Jocelyn about something in the envelope. I personally think it was a birth certificate because we ain't never gonna know how old Carly is. Without the birth certificate, we'll never know. And I think that's what was in that envelope, but that's just a personal opinion. KK and Jocelyn, when Jocelyn had brought up the fact that KK and Stevie had slept together. So, of course, KK called her Cocaline, which when Jocelyn and Prima Donna had got into it on Instagram, Prima Donna was calling Jocelyn Cocaline. And so this was crazy. And then Jocelyn, finally, they asked her, what was in the envelope. And of course, she turned to Don, and they both said that they didn't want to expose Carly, but whatever was in the envelope, Carly, was saying, maybe you should have told me what was in there. Don't be scared now. Just go ahead and do it. But they won't say what was in there. But I personally think it was Carly Red's birth certificate, so that way they can show us, was she born in BC, DC, when Jesus walked. Okay, anyways, on to my second highlight. Still speaking on Jocelyn, seems like this whole reunion is basically based around Jocelyn, but Mimi had refused to film with Jocelyn. Actually, Mimi was about to walk out of the whole reunion when they tried to bring Jocelyn into the room, so they had to film them separate. Um, Mimi was still upset about the whole situation, the finale, how it went down, how her and Jocelyn had gotten into a fight. Again, the baby mama situation, she was crying real tears, and Mimi felt like they were genuine tears because Mimi kind of went through the same thing with Stevie with outside kids and relationships. So she felt for Jocelyn when she was telling her all that stuff about the kids and the infidelity and stuff. But at the end, Jocelyn really needed an Academy Award for Best Drama because she was sitting up there lying the whole time. So Mimi said never again with Jocelyn. Of course, Jocelyn wanted to get back at Stevie because she thinks that Stevie tried to make her jealous by being around Mimi, going to live in her house at the time that they were going through things. So she wanted to kind of get revenge against Mimi and Stevie, but it looks like it backfired on Jocelyn because these ladies are not having it with her. Anyways, on to my third highlight. On to the Kings. So Karen King, Scrap DeLeon, and Sass were all featured on this new season of Love and Hip Hop Atlanta. As you all know, Scrap, free Scrap, he was arrested and he was incarcerated on drug charges. But rumor has it that he might be out before they start filming for season 6 of Love and Hip Hop in Atlanta. So he might be able to film with the cast. So that's what rumor has it. Not confirmed yet, but it could happen. So the host was asking, how did Karen and Sass feel about the way everyone was kind of like fearing the Kings when they first came onto the scene, but Sass felt like it was more of a respect thing versus more of a fear thing just because of the music and stuff that they were putting out at the time. And I kind of feel like everyone basically respected the Kings, but the only person who didn't drink the King's Kool-Aid, of course, is Jocelyn. She rebelled ever since against the Kings just because of the affiliation with Stevie J, even taking it so far as to say that Karen King had slept with Stevie. So it's crazy because her and Jocelyn, Karen and Jocelyn, actually they had got into it because Karen confronted Jocelyn about her sleeping together with Stevie allegations. And Jocelyn was like, "You're 60 years old, go get a job. You going to jail for stealing a Chanel bag." And Karen King did spit on Jocelyn, so I don't know. I kind of wanted to see that little clink clink. But anyways, on to my fourth highlight. K Michelle was on the scene, but it took a little bit of convincing for them to have her sit down and do her final interview. Now, K Michelle had pulled up, she wasn't prepared or ready. Um, Once security started searching through her bags, that's when K Michelle had decided to leave, and the producers had to send executive producer Mona Scott Young out to try to get K Michelle back in. And she finally convinced K Michelle to do her last and final interview, which she did, and she did it by herself. And they asked her, why did you come back to the show? And she just was saying that she just wanted to show the ladies that she's now successful. Her album is doing good. She's on tour. She kind of wanted to showcase that. And also, she talked about her and Jessica Dimepiece friendship, how she finally had blocked Jessica Dimepiece from her phone. And of course, Jessica went on Instagram and was in her DMs going off on her, calling her two-faced, backstabber, yada yada. Jessica was saying that she didn't do anything to K Michelle. She didn't know why she blocked her from her life. But I feel K Michelle, like if you have friends that are not bringing anything positive to you and you're trying to get to another level, sometimes you gotta let those people go. So hey, go you, K Michelle, and I'm glad you're on tour and you're doing your thing, girl. On to my fifth highlight. So before the interviews even started, Tammy and Bambi were in the same room together and they was already turned. They was ready to go. They was like, if somebody come up in here, it's going to be some problems. They was turned up. But they did have a sit down with Betty Idol, Bambi, Mama D, and Lil Scrappy. Now, if you can remember during the season, Lil Scrappy was working with Betty Idol. They were basically working on music. There was a little flirting here and there. There was a little something, something, but mainly it was just music and there was no relationship. But Bambi felt differently about Betty Idol because she felt like she was coming for her. Bambi also felt like she didn't even know Betty Idol who she was. Now Betty Idol said that Bambi had looked her up and down where her and D Smith had showed up to Tammy Rivera's fashion show. But Bambi was saying that she always looks like that and she wasn't doing nothing to her. And then Betty Idol said, "Well, I do have a problem with your friend as well." So it was basically something that, the fight that happened in the beginning of the season with Tammy and Betty Idol. So Bambi felt like, well, that's between you two and not between you and I. So why would you have the problem with me? Why would you come after me when you're trying to get on Scrappy's bleep? So they was just arguing back and forth about it. But they finally did escort Betty Idol out of the room. So that way Scrappy, or Little Scrappy, and Bambi can talk about their engagement, which was nice. And Mama D finally said that she was going to let the BAM into the palace, finally. But also, their wedding date will be next year in July. So I thought that was pretty dope. But anyways, I'm going to go ahead and spill some hot tea for you guys during this whole reunion. It's so crazy. So let's go ahead and get this started. The producers had asked about Jocelyn and Stevie J's marriage certificate. Of course, the marriage situation had came up. It's been coming up every season, but this season it was really prevalent because there were pictures of Jocelyn floating around with Rick Ross and Young Dro, and Hands were in places they shouldn't have been. And Stevie J had went on to say that him and Jocelyn were not married. So as they're holding their separate interviews, Stevie J had refused to sit down with Jocelyn in the same room. He refused to interview with her. But basically, he did tell the host that the only reason why they had did this whole marriage thing is because it came out in publication that they were married. So he ran with it, but he felt like anybody with the last name of Jordan should not be acting the way she acts. Now, that's when the producers had stepped in and they did ask for a marriage certificate, because Jocelyn, all throughout the whole episode of the reunion, was saying her husband. And of course, neither one of them could produce the documents, and they didn't produce it. Um, People that didn't show up to the reunion was Waka Flocka Flame, Deb, and D. Smith. I was kind of disappointed because I really wanted to see Deb and D. Smith sit down and talk about what happened when they had their powwow about the event that Deb wanted her at for her no internet bullying campaign. And then also, I wanted to see Tammy and Waka sit down as well, because they were a part of this season quite a bit, especially towards the end when Tammy had announced that they were separated. So I was kind of disappointed about that. But what I was really shocked about in this reunion was Tommy did admit that she tried to run Jocelyn over with her car. Tommy is not the one to be played with. I can see she had her hair cut. She was sitting up there with this little bralette situation on. She was not playing any games. And you know what? That haircut looks really nice on her. I feel like some other people would look like a dirty tennis ball, but on her, it looked really cute. Um, but yeah, she said that, and she also was asked about her mugshots, saying, "How many mugshots do you have? Is it 32?" And she was saying, "It could be a little bit more. You're shy some numbers." But when the producers wanted to sit Jocelyn and Tommy down in the same room, they had learned that Jocelyn had filed a restraining order against Tommy the day before the reunion started, which was questioned. The host questioned her, and Jocelyn had got mad and said it didn't matter if that car situation happened 5 months ago. It doesn't matter. You're being messy, and I could do it whenever Jocelyn wants to do it. And of course, at the end of the whole situation, the whole reunion, Jocelyn, of course, drops the bombshell and pulls out a pregnancy test. And yes, ladies and gents, she confirmed that she is pregnant on the reunion. Make sure that you go ahead and comment below for the question of the night. Whose hair did you like best? That is it for tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will be back for part 2 next week. Have a good night.